Kendrick Lamar is showing us something we've never seen before. It's rare to see an artist reach these heights, from headlining Super Bowl halftime shows to breaking long-standing records, all without chasing trends or changing his own music. And this is exactly what we see on his latest album, GNX. An album that could have easily sounded safe and boring, but with some key production choices, this album becomes exceptional. So today we're going to break down the production ideas on GNX, what makes these beats on this album so remarkable, and we'll also cover some ideas that you should be using in your beats as well. Now, the first idea that stands out to me on this album are the details in these beats and how unusual they make the production sound. Beat after beat, you'll notice small, almost trivial changes made to the production, but this is exactly what helps the beats stand out. Let me show you what I mean. A great example of this is on the title track, GNX.
Have you ever been a joint and you know it? Have you ever had to flip your unemployment?
When you break down this beat, it's these small ideas that jump out to me. Starting off, we have a relatively simple piano for the loop. So nothing revolutionary happening so far. But if you were to give this idea to most producers, they would probably do something like this, where they might start by adding in a typical hi-hat pattern like so. They would put a snare on the second and fourth beat like this. And then maybe a few kicks to go along with a typical 808, and we'd get a beat like this. But take a look at what's done in the actual beat instead. First, one unusual detail that jumps out to me is the actual drum pattern itself. Namely, the entire first quarter of the bar is completely empty. For 99% of beats, there's almost always a kick on the one at the very beginning of the loop. But here, there's absolutely nothing. In fact, the entire first beat is empty. And another unusual idea here is layering kicks underneath snares, which again, not commonly done. But another idea that stands out to me in this beat is the sound manipulation. We have this reverse sound that's part of the drum loop, which when you analyze it, is actually a reversed hi-hat. And the same thing is happening in the low end as well. These are the sounds used to fill up the low end in the beat. There are two sounds here, but as you can see, if we take sound number 2, it seems that it's actually sound number 1 just reversed. There's just so many small, unusual decisions that add so much character to this beat. We see this in another song as well, like Hey Now, which might be my favorite off of this album.
Hey now, say now, mother by my yin. Big face Buddha, get my peace from within.
So here is how this beat was put together. We start with this reverby percussive layer. And then we have those vocal sighs, which is such a cool texture to me. But there are small yet unusual details in the beat's structuring. Take a listen to the drum loop. In an era where producers endlessly use the same ideas over and over, like hi-hat rolls or snare rolls, we see something different here. We have the kicks being rolled, which again is an uncommon idea you just do not see. Not to mention they are layered underneath a clap, which is odd. But I think the beat that displays this oddity in the details is Man at the Garden.
Put my homes on a beachfront, flying private, what you eat for lunch, I deserve it all.
So once again, we do have a conventional idea to start this beat. The core sound is this electric piano playing these straightforward chords. I just want to quickly point out, I didn't actually recreate all of this by ear because I actually don't know music theory. I was able to piece together the beat thanks to a plugin that I built called Note Grabber. What this does is it shows you all of the notes playing inside of a sample or a song. So I literally just took the official beat, stripped it out, and played it into Note Grabber. As you can see, it easily lets me see what's happening. And this also lets you trace whichever notes you want and easily drag them into your own beat. So whether you're trying to analyze beats or recreate samples, Note Grabber can help you do all of this. I am offering a free 14-day trial, so if you're interested, click the link in the description box below. Anyways, back to the beat, we have this conventional idea here to start. And again, this is where the beat could have easily become mundane with the use of typical drum pattern ideas. But instead, take a look at what's happening in this beat. A lot of strange ideas in this one. So firstly, instead of a typical hip hop kick, we have this digital sounding tom. And while we do have a kick with this drum pattern, once again, it's reversed. The placement of the drums is also unusual. Instead of having a snare on the 2 and the 4 like this and having the hi-hats fill up most of the space in this pattern, which is what most producers would do, we only have one single hi-hat per bar and a snare on the 4 with a tom replacing the snare on the 2. And some of the space in this beat is filled with these really unusual distorted textures. The amount of beats on this album that go from typical or mundane to unusual through all of this detail is what helps GNX as an album stand out. But another idea that stands out to me on this album is how samples are used. And one beat in particular that shows this off is TV Off.
It's not enough. Few solid niggas left, but it's not enough. Few bitches that'll reach that, but it's not enough.
A lot of people have been pointing out this beat sounds very similar to Not Like Us, and for good reason. They're actually built with a lot of the exact same ideas. So for Not Like Us, this is the sample that was used. And these two chops from the sample are used as the cornerstone of the beat, both coming from this section of the sample here. Now what I find interesting about the sample usage is how much openness is created. As you can see, there are gaps where the sample isn't playing at all, and it's essentially just drums during these times in the beat. I know this is a tendency that I have where my approach is wanting sounds to be playing at all times, and I try to create loops where the sample is filling up most of the space in the beat. But as you can see, this beat is built differently to have more openness, which really lets an artist take over. And the exact same approach is used for TV Off, which uses this sample. As you can see, both of these songs sample the exact same artist, exact same album, Monk Hagen's 1969 album MacArthur Park, and this is partly why these two beats feel so similar. But as you can see, the sampling approach here is also similar. A lot of openness and gaps that are deliberately used to create space for an artist. I know this is something for me to definitely keep in mind whenever I use samples, and maybe something that you will find helpful as well. But how samples are used isn't everything on this album. I also think what samples are used also helps bring a lot of personality to a lot of these songs. The album does have a few samples that are conventional, where we do see 60s and 70s soul and jazz samples, but there are also other samples that are just really unique. For example, the song Reincarnated.
I got this fire burning in me from within. Concentrated thoughts on who I used to be. I'm shedding skin.
Sampling a Tupac song.
Born hated as a thug, house full of babies crying for my lack of getting love. Ain't nobody tell me shit.
Which I recently found out first appeared on a Jackie Chan movie soundtrack, which I found pretty funny. But there's also the Heart Part 6.
Load up the Pro Tools and press 3. Studio filled with Jack in the Box and Pepsi.
Which samples another 90s song by R&B group SWV. So here we are seeing samples that producers don't commonly explore. But I think by far my favorite unusual sample on this album is Squabble Up.
Woke up looking for the broccoli. Hot key, keep a horn on me, that come my seat.
Which samples a genre you rarely ever see used, an 80s electro funk song. Now, I'm not entirely sure about this, but I think Kendrick himself may have put this beat together. When you look at the track listing, you see the first two producers on every track are Soundwave and Jack Antonoff, who both likely oversaw the entire production process like executive producers. But the third producer listed on each song seems to be the main producer who put the actual beat together, like Hey Now and TV Off being produced by DJ Mustard, or Whacked Out Murals being produced by DJ Dahi. And what's interesting is that when you look at Squabble Up, the third producer listed is actually Kendrick Lamar himself. I'm not sure if this means he made the beat, I don't know, but nonetheless, whoever made this beat did a great job because it's another one of my favorites off of this album. So the main idea for the beat was put together like so. This is the core piece of the sample that is used after stem splitting to get rid of the drums so that the producer can bring in their own drums. And what's great about this sample is that the core phrase that you just heard repeats throughout most of the song. So this allows the producer, whoever it may be, to swap out different ideas to keep the beat interesting. For example, there's this piece of the sample that has this similar underlying idea, but these bells come in. Same thing with this next idea. We have this synth that comes in and it works perfectly with what's already built because the same underlying phrase is playing throughout the sample. And we also have sections where vocals come in and yet another synth pattern gets used. Throughout the entire beat, these different ideas get swapped and used interchangeably, helping the beat stay interesting, but all of this works and sounds fluid because the underlying idea never changes. This is a great approach to sampling that can help you make a non-boring beat. By the way, if you sample for your beats, again, think about checking out Note Grabber, my plugin, which you can download for free next to me and try it out. But those are the interesting ideas that jumped out to me on this album. Comment down below, let me know what your favorite song on GNX was. Hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Otherwise, I will see you next time. Bye bye.